Welcome, everyone. It's Ava and Shiloh here today, and we are so excited to have you here for a really fascinating discussion on New Earth and this golden age, and just really this concept of what this buzzing around of 5D, right? And we've really had some information come through our channels that's really suggesting that this is really kind of the baseline of the conversation and the starting point, and it's not where we're ending up. And so we really just wanted to dive in and give some perspective on just some different points of view on what's really happening now as we're entering this age and have been entering this age now for a while. And the other piece of this conversation here is we literally just Pluto just moved from Capricorn into Aquarius. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that piece as well, which I know many of you are familiar with. It's really buzzing around right now. And what is really happening here, and what does it all mean, right? And what does it mean personally for you? So we're really going to take this conversation at a very different angle than you've probably heard, weaving in a lot also around the frequencies that we're in of the construct itself, of the frequency of 12 that we're in, and what we're moving into with this frequency of 13, and how that's all playing into the New Earth conversation. So this is going to be a really fascinating discussion. I can't wait to dive in. And welcome, Shiloh.
Yes, I am so excited to dive into this topic. I've been having vision after vision of this, and we'll dive into that in a little bit. But this has been something that my heart has been just like burning with desire to talk about, to have a conversation, bring this to the collective, and also ask DiYeena, who we're going to bring in at at the halfway point, some really powerful questions that I know that you've all been waiting to hear as well. And so we're going to start off by just talking a little bit about, okay, so Pluto moved from Capricorn into Aquarius. What exactly does this mean? And there's a lot of buzz going on the internet right now and social media saying that we've now entered the age of Aquarius. But we've actually been in the age of Aquarius for some time. And the reason for this and what that even means, right? It's when we look at the Mayan calendar, the long count calendar, it's a 26,000 year calendar. And so we go through anywhere, it's from 2000 to 2200 year cycles. And so we were just in the age of Pisces, which was known as the Dark Age. And so as that came to completion, we're now moving into, or have already moved into, the age of Aquarius. And because these are so long, right, anywhere from 2000 to 2200 years, there's like a couple 100-year grace period. So we can think of like a pendulum swing, right? And so we're finding our way out of the Dark Age, which we're seeing in the way that the collective is really waking up. I feel like there's more people awake right now than there has been, at least that we know of that's been recorded, right? We really only have the recordings of the Dark Age. But it goes back so much further than that. And even what Ava's speaking into, right, the 13, it's like we're plugging back into the powerful being that we truly are in the human form. And so as we're in this pendulum swing, there's like this couple hundred grace period. And so what you'll notice is that we're finding our way out of this Dark Age. And so as Pluto is now moving from Capricorn into Aquarius, it's almost like we're getting this little NOS boost, right? Because if you even do your own research, there's some people that believes that the age of Aquarius actually started in the 1800s. I believe it was 1844 to be exact. And then there's also a lot that believe that it started December 21st of 2012. And that is really when my awakening just opened up like the floodgates. I've shared with Ava, like I really thought that we were going through this ascension process when 2012 happened. I was like certain of it. And when the reality of it was we were still very much sifting through the dark era, because it's not just an overnight kind of shift, right? We're doing this gradual releasing all of the shadow aspects, which is the beautiful thing about Pluto, because Pluto is the lord of the underworld, right? And so in Capricorn, where it's like the systems that have been in place, right? It's structure. And so Pluto has gone in there into the shadow aspects and just kind of shaken everything up, so that's why in the last, especially the last 20, 30 years, it's like all of the really dark things that have been going on in our collective, they're all coming to the surface, right? We look at all of the stuff, the whistleblowers and without saying trigger words on the internet, the things that have happened on that certain island and the things that are going on in Hollywood, right? It's like these really dark things that have been happening in the collective that have been covered up are really unearthing. And that has a lot to do with Pluto, right? Lord of the underworld going in and just purging everything from the shadow, bringing it and alchemizing it into the light. And so now we're getting this little nos boost into Aquarius, right? Which again, we've already been in the pendulum swing into the age of Aquarius. So this is really going to amp things up for us, which is really exciting, but also know that Pluto is the Lord of the underworld. And so there's going to be a light and a shadow aspect to the age of Aquarius, right? This golden era. And so we can look at a couple of the different aspects of, okay, Aquarius is really innovation, right? It's like when I think of Aquarius, it's like, let your freak flag fly, right? Which to me is really truly learning how to be your most authentic self and really shining the true light and stepping in and embodying the mission that you truly came here to live out. This is really destiny points coming online. And then the shadow aspect, right, of the age of Aquarius is also technology and the innovation happening in technology and AI and computer chips and all of these different parts and pieces as well, robots and, things that we used to see in movies thinking it was science fiction. And now these things are coming to life as well. And so it's going to be really interesting to be an observer of the collective and what really takes place, especially as Pluto is in Aquarius. And so, you can really take a look and tune into what aspects of yourself are you really ready to dissolve, maybe even in the shadow aspects of everywhere that you're not in your authenticity and shining your light, and how you're really being called forward to serve in the collective awakening, knowing that if you're here, you're listening to this podcast, we know you're a light leader that's really here to, lead and just raise the collective consciousness of humanity alongside all of us. So that's a little bit about the astrology. And we're going to dive into more of like the new earth frequency. And Ava has something really cool that she wants to share that I honestly didn't know anything about. I recall hearing about it, but I feel like this is something that I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about. And that's the convergence that happened in 1987. And so I'd love to hear a little bit more about that, Ava.
Yeah, so dating me a little bit, but what I'll say is that this age of Aquarius,
you were alive during that time.
Oh, thanks. So what I'll say about this particular age is that we have been, and DiYeena talks about this as well, kind of like it's not this overnight shift of happening. And this is kind of what Shiloh was speaking to as well, with these kind of like little lily pads or stepping stones in consciousness, or these kind of like little amplifications of energy that are here in they're really cosmic alignments that are happening in the planetary systems that are of course part of our own body and frequency as well, because everything is really connected and interconnected in this way. So when these moments are happening, these are really opportunities to really boost our frequency and to really kind of propel us forward into these new energetics that are at play already. So it's an amplification moment, right? And so the harmonic convergence in 1987 was really the first that we know, at least the first recorded moment of a planetary global meditation that was happening at Stonehenge and Egypt and all over the world. Humans were coming together and meditating with this six six planet alignment. I think it was six planet alignment. I'm not sure how many planets actually, but these planetary alignments that were happening at that time, and really using that as an opportunity to raise consciousness. And it was a really palpable moment for our planet, and was really one of those major stepping stones, similar to 2012. I mean, I was in Israel in 2012, literally chanting and meditating all night long with a group of probably 150 people right by the Dead Sea, by Qumran. And it's like, everyone was doing stuff like that, and maybe not in Israel, but there was stuff going on like that all over in 2012. Everyone was doing some kind of thing in a similar way, where we all were like, oh, this is a big deal. Got to go do something spiritual, and so we're all finding our way to be spiritual that day, because we're like, well, we better do it, right? We better just really capitalize on the frequency. And so we were all finding our way, right, with that. And there's something, I believe, deep in our soul that just knows these moments are for us, right? That just knows these opportunities are for us individually, for us collectively, should we so choose to align with them. So these are really the moments in time and these opportunities. And we just went through in a whole eclipse season these past year and a half that's of similar nature, right? It's like we'll all, at least in North America, remember where we were, especially those of us that were going to the path of totality. That's a moment we're never going to forget, right? We're all going to remember what that moment was, where we were when we were looking into the sun, right? Like, hopefully, like, many of us are going to remember that moment and who we were with and what we were doing in that moment, because it was just such a profound moment in time on a cosmic level, that it was a palpable moment we could feel physically, right? And so these are the moments that are there for us. And so that's all the backdrop, right? That's all the energetic backdrop to this storyline here of what we're collectively moving through in this humanity's awakening process, right? And I was just speaking with Shiloh earlier today when we were kind of going through our notes for this episode, and I was saying, this feels really like a galactic reunion right now on Earth. It feels like there are so many beings from so many star systems coming here that are here right now, that are really here for this particular moment, because it is such a special moment in time, and because it is so important, because Earth is such an important stopping, like it's literally like a pit stop in the cosmos, and it's a really important place. It has a really important placement in the cosmos in terms of its accessibility to other worlds and other portals and other universes. And so it just has this really big importance. And DiYeena's spoken about this too, how everyone is just on the edge of their seats, eating their popcorn. And I'm talking about the beings that are just kind of holding planet Earth on a frequency level, that are here supporting in whatever way they are, but they're not embodied on the Earth. Like, we are here doing the boots on the ground work, as she says, where there's many, many, many in the astral realms and the etheric realm that are really supporting this shift. And they're really on the edge of their seats, just kind of standing by, eating their popcorn, watching the show, wondering what the humans are going to do and how quickly we're going to come together to make this shift happen, because it really is up to us. And so these are really the moments that get to make it fun, right? Because there is still free will in all of this. There is still choice in all of this. And that's the curious conversation that we're even going to bring DiYeena in to kind of talk about some of these pieces, because there's some pieces that can feel a little scary, a little unclear, a little like what is happening? There's some pretty intense prophecy, right, for this particular time in history, no matter what avenue you look, whether you're looking at, the walls on the caves, or you're looking at the natives, or you're looking at the revelations, or you're looking, like, there's so many different angles of where you can go to read about prophecy. And almost all of them are speaking to the times we're in right now. Mm-hmm. And that's really clear. That's really clear in what's happened, what's happening, and what's foreshadowed to come, right? And so there's all these pieces that are really a part of this puzzle right now. And that's really leading into this conversation around, and I am actually feeling the need to pause right there and just see what's coming up for you, Shiloh, as we bring that part up in the conversation.
I mean, there's so much coming through. I can just this conversation gets me so excited, and there's so much just I guess, attunement coming through of like, this is the tipping point for humanity. This is the time that we all chose to come here, right? As you were just sharing, like, there are many cosmic beings, ascended masters, archangels, like literally just watching over Earth going, what is going to happen? Because yes, there is divine will and there's also free will, right? So the humans can also throw a curveball here and there, and it creates a new divine plan and pathway. But I will say, every time I check in with myself, what track am I really on right now? Like, when I tune into the highest timeline available for myself, I'm always led back to New Earth. And so that's why I get really excited about it, because I'm like, I've seen it, I've been there, like, I know where we're heading. It's more amazing than you could ever imagine. And so no matter what is going on right now and in the world, on the earth, whether in your individual life or as the collective, it's like, if we've done an episode already on this, but people asking like, how could you think we're in the highest timeline right now? And I'm like, because every time I ask, I'm brought into New Earth. So I don't care what's happening on the planet. Not that I don't care. Obviously I do. I have deep compassion for what is happening, because there is real human suffering that's taking place. And simultaneously, I can see the higher vision for humanity. And so I'm in the deepest trust and inner knowing of where we're heading. And like I said, I've been brought into New Earth many times, and the first time I was actually brought there, and this story is going to be a whole other conversation. And so I'm only going to give you planting a little seed, and then we'll come back to it on a deep dive one day, because it's quite long. But the first time I actually ever connected to the Pleiadians was in 2010. And if you know anything about my work and my expertise, it's bilocation, it's astral travel, it's multidimensional travel, basically, and really learning the embodiment in the human form, not being fragmented, not bypassing and spending a bunch of time out here, but really being in the embodiment of it, understanding what it is to know our multidimensionality while also being very present here in the human experience. There's a mastery to that, and I believe that that's what we're all really learning on a soul level here, whether we're conscious of it or not. But when I connected with them for the first time in 2010, they literally brought me up on one of their ships and showed me who I am, and they were showing me the trajectory of Earth and how we're heading into this new Earth paradigm. And then I had all of these other wild stories where this book was given to me called Bringers of the Dawn by Barbara Messiniak, and I read it cover to cover probably 100 times. My mind was just blown. I was like, oh my God, makes so much sense. And since then, I've just been on this self-discovery and deep dive to what is the golden age? What is the age of Aquarius, right? Because 2010, then not much longer after, was 2012. And I was like, this is why the Pleiadians came and showed me this. It's happening right now. And of course, now I'm understanding it's a bit more of a slower integrated process. Why is that? Well, it's because we're physical beings. And again, we're not ascending off the planet out of our human form, right? We're really going along in the human physical journey. And in fact, we must be in the body. We must learn how to be in the embodiment form, in presence, to go through the ascension process. And that's because the ascension process has a lot to do, right? The ascension what I mean is by going into the new earth paradigm, right? Raising our frequency and then being in this higher golden age, the new earth age, is all through frequency, right? And so that's why there's also a lot of agendas to keep you out of the body, right? And so it's like really learning how to be in the body and learning how to be in our emotions and tuning ourselves to the frequency is really important work at this time. In fact, I feel like it's vital. And so, every time I've been brought to New Earth, I'll just say this is what I experience. It's pristine, crystal clear, turquoise waters. We're all living in community. We're in harmony with the earth. We're in harmony with each other. We're all serving the community in a higher aspect, meaning like money doesn't exist, poverty doesn't exist, right? We're all in this place where it's synergy, right? There's coherence in giving and receiving. And I know that that feels like, again, a sci-fi movie. It's like, that's something that we watch in the movies, and, how could that possibly exist? And as Ava was just even sharing earlier, right, there are a lot of prophecies about this time. And, again, some of them sound a little scary, right? And so the reason why we really wanted to share this was, I have no doubt that where we're heading is incredibly beautiful, and it's more magical than we could ever even comprehend. And so even in the prophecies and the revelations of some of the things that can come up that can create a little fear, there's a deeper understanding of the evolution of the soul, of the evolution of the human body that we're really moving through. And I think this is a good time to maybe bring in the story of the dragonfly. What are you feeling, Ava? Is there anything else that you want to touch on before that?
Yeah, just one piece that you kind of mentioned, just to kind of really bring it home, because this was a really big piece for me, which is, we both have been taken to New Earth and shown what it looks like, and shown like who's there with us, and it's literally, it's everyone, it's all of our humans, it's all of the ones that we love, it's our soul family. And it really hit home for me, the difference of experience that we're having here in this third dimension here, as we're all, and maybe some of you can relate to this, of having friends in all corners of the globe and feeling almost disconnected, or like, why you've either not found your soul tribe at all and you're feeling completely isolated, or like you found them, they exist, and you don't live together, and you can't understand why life is the way that it is, right? It's like, why are we not all living together in community and raising our babies together? Like, why is that not what's happening here? And when we tune in deeper, it's for the reasons, right? And we all are really tuned into those pieces of like, well, I just know that I'm meant to be here, and I just know that I'm meant to be here. And we're all being placed strategically, honestly. And DiYeena's actually talked about this, about how we're all being strategically placed right now in position to actually assist in this process of raising the frequency within the humans and within the earth itself. And that's the actual shift that's taking place, as well as like, and we can talk about the experience of the shift into quote unquote 5D, and like what's actually come through for us, which is not necessarily stopping at 5D, and like what that actually, the experience of that in reality, of like going from this place of like actually shifting into this world where we actually are all together, and there actually is a world where we are all living out our best life together in community, and that actually is a deeper reason why we're feeling that yearning in our soul down here in this reality, is because there's a version of us that is actually experiencing the other version where we are all together. And so it doesn't make a lot of sense down here sometimes, but there's a part of us that actually is very connected to the reality of that we're speaking of, where we are in New Earth together, and we are living out this amazing dream, and it seems like a dream, but it's actually already there. And that's the beauty of this New Earth conversation, is it's not this pie in the sky thing that we have to quote unquote get to, right? And that's the beautiful story of this dragonfly that Shiloh's about to share with you. It's like, it's actually right here, it's already happening, right? So I think this is a good time to share the dragonfly story, because it's just amazing.
Yeah. And I'll just share, even before I talk about the dragonfly and the metamorphosis of the dragonfly, the power in this story really lies in the dragonfly's DNA. And that really is how we're going through this process of the evolution into raising our frequency to match that of New Earth, to really be going through this ascension process, again, very much in the human form. And it's Richard Rudd who, channeled and created the gene keys, if you're familiar with that. Gene key 55 specifically, he talks all about the ascension process. And gene key 55, it's victimization into freedom, into freedom. And the freedom is the is the evolution of our DNA, right? And so right now we are a double helix human. We have 2 strands of DNA plugged in, but we have 10 other strands that are lying dormant. So we actually have 12 strands of DNA. And so it's believed that as we're going through this evolutionary period, that what scientists call junk DNA is actually weaving and plugging back in through the mutation of sunlight, right? Sun connecting us straight into source, straight into the great central sun. And then of course, right, everything that Ava and I teach, it's all about the frequency of 13. And so there's actually a 13th strand. And this 13th strand is the center pillar that connects you straight up in the source and that anchors you down into the earth grid as well. And so the 13th, making it the 13 strands of DNA is what also allows us to connect into these higher paradigms of earth all the way up. Even Abba was saying 5D. Every time I hear like the 5D paradigm, it just still feels like I'm in this 3-dimensional box. And I'm like, but my soul is infinite and it's multidimensional and it can go, and it's already weaving past 5D. So as we're going through this process, and take it if it resonates and leave it if it doesn't. But I feel like we're expanding actually further past that. And so with that, right, the ascension is really plugging in our DNA. And so when we think about, well, okay, so as a human in human form, we actually have, say, 12 all the way to these 13 strands. And that's actually already in all of our makeup. It's not something that like it's outside of self, something that we have to like, it's something that already exists within us. And really it's just plugging it in. It's like plugging in a light switch. All of the hardware is there. It works. It just needs to be plugged in and turned on. And so the story of the dragonfly, and again, Richard Rudd believes that dragonflies are put on this earth to literally mirror back to us the ascension process. And so dragonflies actually live is a bug called a nymph. And this bug lives in ponds, swamp areas, and they live under the water at the bottom of the pond. And, this is something that you can even go in YouTube, like a nymph, the metamorphosis of a nymph into a dragonfly. It's a fascinating process. And so they live for 7 years as water creatures. They live in this dark, shadowy abyss. So if you think of humans, right, we've been this double helix human that actually has all of this power because we have all of these other strands of DNA. It's also believed why we only use like such a small percentage of our brain. And so we're just like the nymph, right? At the bottom, we're in this, the dark age, the age of Pisces, and we're starting to swim out of this like murky water. Coming to the top, we see this light coming up, right? And so it's so similar to what's happening with then the golden age, the age of Aquarius. And so at around 7 years, give or take, right? There's never an exact day to it. It's clearly just in the evolution of the nymph or higher calling or whatever you want to call it. And the nymph will actually find its way to a rock or to a piece of grass that's in the water but sticking out, and it'll actually crawl up the piece of grass. And right before sunrise, it always happens right before dawn, it'll find its way out. And so this creature that has lived underwater its whole life is now breathing in air for the first time, just out of nowhere, trusting that it can breathe air and be out of water. And as soon as the dawn, as soon as the sun starts rising and dawn emerges, the sunlight starts to mutate the DNA of the nymph. And it goes through a 24-hour molting and shedding process where it turns from a nymph to a dragonfly. And when scientists have really studied the dragonfly, what they say is very similar to humans, that the DNA always exists. The DNA for the dragonfly always existed in the nymph. It just wasn't plugged in and turned on, exactly like our junk DNA. So if we can take what a nymph looks like, living under the water in this very dark, murky existence, and then now all of a sudden it plugs in those extra strands of DNA through the mutation of sunlight. And now all of a sudden it's this beautiful dragonfly that's not only a land creature, it's a winged creature. It's flying. So the metamorphosis of the dragonfly is, to me, such beautiful symbolism to what I believe is really truly happening to us here in human form. And I believe it's going to be like that. Like what, both Ava and I have seen of New Earth is very similar, and it feels like that. It feels like we're living this three-dimensional, dark, heavy, dense construct, and we're evolving into being these winged ones in the sense of like really finding freedom, and really coming out of the construct of such density in our form. And the fascinating thing about that is the mutation that comes from the sunlight. This is why I also believe that the sun has been so targeted. There's all of these, again, without saying certain words, like these trails in the sky, right, that have aluminum that's reflecting the sun back and basically keeping the sunlight from really coming into our atmosphere. I can get into all of the agendas and all of the things, but right, we've been told that the sun is bad and harmful when really it's here to really assist us in this evolutionary period. It's life force. And, even Ava speaking about how it's this galactic reunion, boots on the ground, right? It's when, before all of us starseeds chose to come here and incarnate here at this time, right? The density was so intense that in order for anyone down here to even awaken, right, there needed to be enough of us to come down here that understood how to receive, right? How to receive in the density. We, even like all of the distortion and like the, just the technology, right? It's like the 5G towers and all of this that is actually really harmful to our systems and the electromagnetic fields. And so it's important for those of us who really understand how to work with the sun, work with pulling light in, anchoring it into the grids. And also what happens with that, right, is we specifically come from certain star systems. Now, I believe that many of us have actually weaved in all of the star systems, but we're coming here with specific, when we're talking about DNA, right? There is galactic DNA and codes in a lot of our DNA and cells that are also lighting up. And so when we're pulling that in, when we're allowing the sun, when we're pulling in light and meditation, that's coming in and not only lighting up the human DNA, it's lighting up the DNA from all of these other galactic systems, which is also assisting you in activating your spiritual gifts and moving through the ascension process and really stepping into the light leader that you came here to be, which is really what Ava and I are so passionate about, of holding that space for all of you, again, so we could really rise together here in the new earth that's unfolding.
Yeah, and that's so beautifully said. And when we're really talking about what's coming through here is these pieces that we've sprinkled through other episodes, and we've sprinkled through our containers inside our membership. And this isn't the first time that those of you who have been following us and tuned into us for a while now, you've heard some of these pieces around the importance of the food that you're taking in, the light that you're taking in, right? I talk about this a lot. This is my background in, raw veganism, especially, just having a history in juice fasting, green juice fasting, and just that world, being very attuned to the benefits of taking in light, right? Taking in the frequencies of light, because it's not only what's allowing our bodies to operate at this higher frequency and this higher functionality, but it's also what's bringing in the most sunlight. Right. And so this is actually what's allowing these shifts to take place at a faster rate, at a more kind of comprehensive rate. Right. And the other piece here that was really pouring in was around the mushrooms, as you were talking about this galactic reunion. We just spoke about this. I think it was even in our pilot episode. If you haven't checked that one out, make sure you go back and listen to it, because we really talk about the origin story of the mushrooms on the planet. And really what's coming through is how they're actually here to assist this process of ascension as well. and that the frequencies that are contained within these are actually interconnecting the web, not only of the earth itself, but these are interconnecting the cosmic frequencies from many, many systems. And that's actually what's assisting us in rewebbing literally our own DNA strands and rewebbing the kind of junk DNA that we're talking about here, quote unquote, for those of you that aren't seeing the air quotes there. It's really that, and so all these little, not so little ways of that we're giving assistance here in this process. And so for those of you who are like, oh, I've used sunscreen my whole life, and it's, there's these programs, right, that we're told certain things, right, and it's been programmed so heavily that it may even feel a little like contradictory in your being. Like it's for some people maybe even new information of like, what, sunscreen's not the best thing in the world for me? Like I should do what during the summer? I should let the sun come into my body? What? But if you think about the fact that we're all living alive, like how do we live? Like we need all the elements to live. We need light to live. It's like the basic foundations, right? And so just like actually taking a step back from the programming and look at life around you and recognize how that process of metamorphosis actually takes place in nature and what's actually happening in our physical form. And so just to say all that, it's not as far away as we think it is, that this is actually happening very quickly and can happen. This is what I loved about this story of the dragonfly. This happened in a day. Mm-hmm. This happened in one day. This did not take hundreds of years, thousands of years. We didn't get to see it in our lifetime. This is one day. A dragonfly is going from a nymph to this flying thing that is just a completely different DNA. It's a complete DNA upgrade. And that is literally, and that's not even like an off-planet thing. That's right here in our Earth. Mm-hmm. So to think that that's not possible for humans is just really short-sighted. So I'm kind of challenging everyone here to really open up in consciousness a little bit and really hold space for the miracles, the seeming miracles that are actually not miracles at all. It's actually a part of our process. And it's interesting when you're talking about Richard Rudd, and I think you were saying like 2027 is when he believes we're going into the quadrated helix. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. When you're talking about that, I was like, whatever he's tuned into, whatever channel information he's receiving, it's like there are these moments where there's literally just like the dragonfly, right? It's like this 7-year process, but there's something in the code itself of this being that knows what day to go grab onto that piece of grass. Mm-hmm. There's something in the code that knows it is time right now. And so it wouldn't surprise me if that were actually the case, where 2027 comes and all of a sudden we're in this quadrated, and it does happen overnight. It does happen very quickly because it's simply a timing piece of that being ready to be activated within the human form. And it can be just that quickly, right? It doesn't have to be this long drawn out process. And I think that's important for everyone to hear.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Thank you for sharing that piece, right? Because also I want to bring in some clarity, because I don't want it to sound like there's any contra indications in the sense of, in the beginning, right? How I was sharing how the age of Aquarius is this pendulum swing, right? It's taking a little bit of a longer time. That's just the age, right? But when we're sharing of the ascension process or the plugging in of the strands, that is what I've always been shown is this really quick shift, like so quick. If we blink, we're going to miss it. Like all of a sudden it's this, movement in our consciousness that happens very, very quickly. And so we're moving in this. So it's interesting, right? It's the paradox. We're moving in this slower process in the density, releasing the density until we've created enough space. And then it gets to be this shift, right? This plugging in and seeing Earth through a new lens, through a new frequency, right? Really merging. It's the merging of two worlds. And this is also something that I want to ask DiYeena of, another buzz thing that's actually been going around the internet for a long time. I recall seeing this like probably back in 2010, when I was saying, when the Pleiadians first contacted me, of the splitting of Earths and this theory of the two Earths. And that also taps into some of the revelations, right, that are taking place as well, and some of the biblical things, and also some of the prophecies through the Hopi tradition and also the Mayans. If you're familiar with Greg Braden, he does a podcast episode where he speaks about, he was talking to this Mayan elder, and the elder was saying that in the Mayan calendar, which is really what we're talking about here, right? That the Mayan calendar is the long count. It's the 26,000 years. It's the Piscean into the Aquarius. That's really what we're looking at when we're even talking about that specific calendar, the long count calendar. And of course, astrologically where everything is as well. And this Mayan elder was saying, in their prophecies is that he was looking at this wheel, and this wheel had 5 categories, and each of these 5 categories were known as great shakings. And the Mayan elder said, well, we've already been through 4, right? Fire, ice, flood. And he was saying that we're going into the 5th great shaking. And Greg Braden was like, well, what exactly is the 5th great shaking? And the Mayan elder said, it's movement. And he said, we don't know what that means. All we know is it's movement. And so there's some theories around what that could even be. Is it the movement of poles? Because we're starting to see our poles shift. Which, there's a lot of theory on round Earth, flat Earth, and that aspect. And again, that'll be a completely different episode. We'll dive into that at some point. I don't want to get us too off topic, but that's just a theory, right? And then another theory on that would be the movement of consciousness, right? Which is really what I feel personally, intuitively, what I feel is really happening, right? It's this movement in consciousness, the evolution of human consciousness. And it could be a few things. It could be a physical movement, and it could also be an energetic movement of the consciousness as well. And so, right, there's these ancient stories and prophecies all over the world that have really been pointing to this exact time. And how I've been shown it from my guides, of one of the times that I actually accessed a portal and was able to get into New Earth, is, you can say God, source, universe, whatever whatever resonates with you, is my higher self really took me through this experience. And just as Ava, just is what you were sharing around, it's like, it's interesting, right? Our analytical mind or human mind wants to really pinpoint it down to, okay, on this date at this time, this will happen. But what I've seen it to be is it needs energetically, right? There's almost like what I've seen is that a door and a window is going to open up energetically when we're ready. And it's almost like we have one opportunity to jump through, otherwise we're going to miss it. And I don't really believe that we can miss it, but what I was shown was the feeling of it, right? It was like there's a door opening and a portal opening. And as a collective with our consciousness, we have one chance to really run and jump and make it through. And what I've seen is that we do make it through. We are on the trajectory of that truly happening. But I believe through free will, we also have to, it's not like we can just sit back and put our hands up and our feet up and go, okay, great, we're on the trajectory, I can just do nothing now. Because that's not how it works either. I've heard DiYeena say, even in the, like, you're here to be and receive the frequency, doesn't mean that you get to go and numb out and Netflix and chill for the next, decade while we're going through this process. Like, you really need to participate and show up and be a part of this, for your own soul's evolution. And humanity needs that as well, because this isn't, even in prophecies of, like the book of Revelations and these sort of biblical things as well, that says like the return of Christ. And again, if that is what you believe, and this doesn't resonate, then of course just take what does. But I truly believe that it's Christ consciousness, which is just part of it, right? Because that's the masculine counterpart. We have the feminine and the masculine. So it's this union that's coming alive within us. And Christ consciousness awakening within us, and the union that we have with God awakening within us. And that it's not really, it's in my, I don't want to place my beliefs on anyone, but I truly believe that it's not one Messiah. We are really here rising together in this experience. And so we need you not to be sitting on the sidelines and really be in here in the game with us. Because what I've also channeled through is that there's a lot of souls also on a waiting list to come here that are literally just like, they're like, put me in, coach, I want in the game, right? And then we have a bunch of people down here that are, sitting on the sidelines, maybe afraid, or they have stories, or am I a leader? Not me. I'm not capable or good enough or worthy, or whatever the story is. Like, yes, you are. You came here for this time to rise alongside us. And so I hope more than anything, this can be a loving calling forward. And what is your part in this whole experience? And what, a clue to that, because I have a lot of people that have, come for an Akashic record session of like, what is my mission? And what's the higher purpose of why I'm here? It's like, what lights you up? What are you passionate about? What brings you joy? And follow your heart in that, because that's truly what's going to lead you to how you play your part here in this game we call Earth and the time of the Ascension.
And that's what raises your frequency. It's like when you're following that through line of what is lighting you up, that's the quickest, easiest, most surefire way to be in resonance with what is really happening here. It's the fast track through all of this is being in your joy. That is the frequency that moves us through this, as the frequency that moves us through as a collective, right? And I want to kind of come back to what you're speaking to there, of this piece around just where we're all heading here with and it goes back to this discussion of kind of the this Christ consciousness, this new earth frequency, and that being kind of half the story, that we also have this feminine counterpart, and it's not one or the other, right? And that's really the frequency that I believe we're moving into here, is really going from this older construct of 12, and we see this all over our systems, right? Of like the idea of 12 disciples, 12 constellations, 12 calendar months, and 12. We're locked in this placement of 12, which is a very fixed, very earth number that's very divides neatly. It's very there's no decimal afterwards, right? It divides cleanly, right? And then the frequency of 13. That is what we're talking about when we talk about that central column within the DNA, that 13th strand. That is the divine union. That is the masculine and the feminine coming into union. That is the activation of the God code within, lighting up. And that is the frequency of immortality. That is the frequency of new earth. That is the frequency of our full capacity, our full original human blueprint in its 13-dimensional structure. And I want to really be clear here. We are infinite in nature. Okay. 13 is not the cap to our dimensionality at all. At all. Some of the beings that channel through here are way higher than 13th dimension, but they are really honing in on 13 for a really important reason. And that is our coding. That is our DNA coding, is 13. So there is an importance to this number. There is an importance to this frequency. There's an importance to us really coming into right resonance and relationship within these 13 dimensions of our being. So it's not just staying at 3. It's not staying at 5. It's not staying at 12. It's not even necessarily staying at 13, but it's being able to work within the system of 13 that's activating the frequency of immortality. That is the frequency of this 1,000 years of peace that's prophesied. That is this frequency of the lion laying down with the lamb, right? The visions that I've had of New Earth is that we're living in these pockets of community. We're living in this, we're in this trade frequency where it's there isn't money involved in this way. It's like we're just doing out of the goodness of our heart. There's this frequency that's activated in the heart strands where it's like, it's not you do this and I do that and you do this and I do that. And it's not that kind of black and white exchange. And there's these like these little almost like domes that were kind of like all, there's like these pockets of consciousness, right? And I've also seen like, and I want DiYeena to really talk about this more because, and this has also been out in the, you can find this online too, these theories around this split and what that might mean even with this age of Aquarius, of this kind of divide on the physical earth of this partial humanity kind of going in this technocratic, AI advancement technology path. And then this frequency of kind of going into this other frequency of 13, right? And the 12 is really this technology piece because it's missing that 13th connection point. It's missing that direct line to God. It's missing that direct line to source. It's missing that 13th DNA strand. It's missing the union. It's missing the actual connection, what happens when you're in right relationship with the masculine and the feminine. And that starts within yourself. So that's mirrored outside of us. And we see all the imbalance that's going on right now in our external reality. And that's really what is happening right now, is this recalibration back into wholeness within our own being. And that is what gets to activate these other layers of dimensionality within our consciousness. And really holding in these frequencies of 13 is really the starting point. It's really the starting point because we are infinite, but we are in this realm. And, we were talking, I think just one of these last episodes, or maybe one coming up, I'm not sure how it goes in the order, but we just recorded one on sacred geometry. And this question came up around like the stuckness that can happen in the patterning, right? Of like, are we trapped in this frequency of 12? Like what's actually happening here in this dimensionality, this world of dimensionality? And you can look at it like that in a certain way, because there's a fixedness within the construct of 12. And it's just what I was saying. It's divisible. It's cleanly divisible. You divide 2 by, 6 and 2 go in there, 3 and 4 go in there. It's so clean, right? When you try to divide in 13, you're always going to have this little end, this little tail, this little leftover bit, right? That is the infinite. That is the continuation into the new spiral. That is the continuation into infinity, right? And so that is what we're talking about when we talk about immortality. It's this frequency of 13 that connects you directly into source, that is connecting you into your infinite nature, your infinite reality. And so I believe that is the frequency that we're moving into, is the experience of our infinite reality. And we get to do that through the frequency of being boots on the ground on the earth, embodied. It's not, again, leaving the form. It's not leaving the earth itself. And so my curiosity, if I get to throw a question in the mix for DiYeena, is how is that, like, what is happening with the earth herself? What is happening with the earth's frequency? Especially because you're going to be talking about these splits of consciousness, or even potentially 2 different frequencies of humans potentially even residing on the same body. Like, is that what's going to happen? And if so, what is happening with Earth to be able to hold that kind of paradox,
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll definitely bring that into the mix. And I feel like a lot of people are going to have similar questions. In fact, I have similar questions, right? And, because even as Ava and I are sharing, it's like we've experienced what it's like to be there. And also, if I said I knew the exact pathway of how we're entering in, right? It's like, that's the place where we surrender also into the co-creation and really detach from, all of the logistical pieces, and really trust the flow of where we're heading. And I love how you just went a little deeper on from the 12th to the 13th, because, what we've seen and researched, I don't see anyone else really talking about the 13th frequency. And it's really important because it feels like, there's a lot of information around the 12. And, we did a whole episode on the power of 13. And if you're resonating with this, I promise you the power of 13 is an episode that you don't want to miss. So please go check that out. But it's that direct connection in with God. And we can even, you know, without deep diving too far into 13, because we really deep dive into it in the other episode. But if you think of like how, you know, kind of one of my mottos is like, when the collective or the powers that be like tell me one thing, like I should probably look at what the other thing behind that is, right? Like not fully knowing that there's some hidden agendas. So when I'm even thinking about 13, it's like they've done a lot of work to cover up the 13, right? In the sense of like they've literally taken that floor out of apartment buildings and hotels and you know, it's this unlucky number. And so that gives us a big clue into why have they gone to so much trouble to completely take this out, right? In, you know, even the 12 disciples, it's like there was, you know, there's one missing in that. There's, you know, Mary Magdalene was actually the 13th. And, you know, we do a deep dive in the power of 13 if you want to know more about that. I know I apologize if I'm just dropping a bomb there, but there is this missing piece, right? The 12 strands of DNA, there's actually 13 because it's our direct connection to God. And of course, what has happened down here for us to really lose our way as a collective is this being severed from source, being severed from God, which is why there's also the agendas around the sun, right? Part of our source, part of our life force, part of how we receive. And so it's all about coming back internally and going in a self-discovery of who am I and what is my truth in all of this, and really going into self-discovery of connecting that frequency back, of connecting the 13 and really anchoring back into whatever it is that you believe, right? God, source, universe, creator, something beyond this physical realm. And, you know, that's why we're so passionate about doing this work of really like bringing the remembrance back online. And, so yeah, I don't know if there's anything else that you want to share or bring in before we bring in DiYeena, but I'm feeling like it may be time. I don't know how you're feeling.
I was feeling the exact same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So for those who are tuning in for the first time, I'm a trance channel and I do channel DiYeena, a Pleiadian who comes through. There's some other beings that come through, including Magdalene. But DiYeena is the one that comes through for these episodes primarily. And she's hilarious. She's loving. And she is from, or like what she's told me is the frequency that's coming through is from the 13th dimensional field. She's also told me that she's from beyond that dimension, but that's the frequency she's bringing forth because of the relevance for the conversation that we're having right now and what's being activated in humanity right now, of this remembrance of the original blueprint. So I'm a trance channel, which means I take a little bit of a back seat in my body and let her come through and animate and drink a little bit of this cold tea. So I will go ahead and go out and put you in touch with the Pleiadians. Here we go. Greetings. This is DiYeena of the Pleiadian family. You see, we are here so grateful to come and sip the earth with you, bring a little bit of the love, you see, bring a little bit of the jokes, bring a little bit of the humor, and to not scare anyone away. You see, with all the prophecy that is here, you see, we are going to talk a little bit about that, you see, and bring some peace to some hearts, you see. That is really the intent here. But before we do that, we will say, if anyone else has a cold beverage, because these two ladies have been chit-chatting for so long that they would also like to take a sip of their cold beverage, well, then we can sip cold beverages together and see what we all have here. So we like to do this together. If you ever come back and listen again, you can bring your drink and we can all sip the tea together. Whatever you have, you see, you can drop it in the chat what you are drinking today. This is very lovely to do, you see, and share a little bit about what you are drinking. I think we have something blue for Pleiades today. So we are going to take a sip. And greetings, Shiloh. How are you, my dear?
I'm doing so well, DiYeena. It's such a pleasure and honor and blessing to have you here with us today.
Yes, it is a very, very good blessing, you see, to have the communion. You see, it's very good. We are very much enjoying it already. You see, we have just gotten started, you see. So this is very good. We are hearing a little bit of the questions, but maybe you can just say for everyone what you would like to talk about here in the, what you call the plain English, you see.
Yeah, so we are deep diving into New Earth and some of the prophecies that are really focused, ancient prophecies that are focused on this time. And the understanding of, so through these prophecies, there's some that say that there's a splitting of worlds that are taking place, and a splitting of consciousness, and two realities that are really being birthed. And so I have a few different questions on that. The first one I'm going to bring in is what Ava was just asking of, what is the Earth's frequency doing at this time? And is that what's happening, that there's a splitting of consciousness, and then through our free will, we get to decide, and it's really our soul that's choosing which ride that it wants to take, whether it's dipping into New Earth, or maybe it's staying down here to learn some more soul lessons and it's not ready to evolve into the next stage? Or like, what is really happening here when we talk about the New Earth paradigm?
Yes, very good question, you see, because first of all, we are always choosing. You see, there is no doomsday. We are all stuck wherever we are and we do not have any choice in it. You see, it's important to remember, because otherwise you can get a little bit lost in the storyline of, oh, we're leaving people behind, or they're not coming along, or poor them for that experience, or poor me for this experience. You see, we have to keep in mind that everyone is choosing their experience, you see. And they are doing a very good job at it, whatever their role is. You see, whatever they are experiencing, they are doing it perfectly. You see, that is the undercurrent, the undertone of the entire story of creation. You see, everyone is doing it perfectly. You see, big picture here. So you have to keep that in mind first and foremost. You see, so Earth is upgrading her frequency. You see, and that is to hold the consciousness in the frequency of those that choose the New Earth. You see, that choose to be in the higher frequency to activate. There has to be a resonance to hold it. You see, and so that does not mean that those who are not, because you're right, there is a splitting happening. You see, of the different timelines. You see, but it is not so much like how you're describing, because they're already there. You see, it is already there. You see, so there is already different frequencies of reality taking place, you see, for everyone. You see these different storylines, you see. So there's version, you see, where you all happy together, you see, in your little pockets of community, you see, calling it, you say, the 5D or the 13D, or New Earth over here, Golden Age over there, you see, Pleiadian over there, leader over ladder over there. You see, it is not really, it is not so black and white like that. We are experiencing it all, you see. They're experiencing it all. It's hard for the mind to understand. You see, we understand the limitations when we get beyond the dimensionality of the mind. It's like a mind blow, you see. So we apologize for that part. But if you can just let the mind go a little bit and just feel it in your heart that you are playing out with different versions and different timelines, it becomes a little bit of an easier conversation, you see. So it is simply that your awareness has been here in this particular dimension, this particular storyline, you see, as has everyone else who is choosing to experience it. So everyone is having a similar frequency that is attuned to this particular frequency of the storyline called here Earth 3D, whatever you want to call it, this version, where you're talking all these things, you see. There's another version, just a couple stories up, you see, where there's a whole nother timeline happening, a whole nother story playing out, you see. And so you can go to all these other worlds and versions, you see. This is what you would call past lives, you see. Not quite past, you see. It's not quite over, you see. This is the beauty of it, you see. When you make it shift, you see there's ripples in all the different timelines as well, you see. So it becomes a little bit intricate of a storyline when you realize how powerful you are to change the story, you see. So this is very interesting, you see, because we are shifting the timeline. So it is interesting because you have the different perspectives. So you go to another timeline, you're shifting the perspective of consciousness, you see, and recognizing that everything is still happening in the now. Well, then all of a sudden, from that new vantage point, the other timelines are also experiencing another vantage point, you see, because it is in a different frequency, a different timeline, you see. So even these common stories that we might think about in our quote-unquote past history, in different timelines, they play out in a different way, you see. Isn't that fascinating?
It's so fascinating.
Yes. So when you are thinking about this new earth thing that you are talking about in this particular way, all that is really happening is consciousness is choosing to reshift the focus to another storyline. You see, that is already there. It's already there. You see, and so it is really, it is the same thing when you have, like, you go into like what quote unquote a past life regression or something like this, or a hypnosis session or something like this, where you get these little glimpses of yourself in another world. You see, another storyline. You can say, oh, I was doing this or that, or this happened, or whatever the case may be. You see, you get little glimpses of these other moments, you see, in the story, you see, but they're simply just different shifts in the perspective, simply different angularity on consciousness, you see. And so you have to understand that you are infinite in nature, playing out on infinite timelines, infinite realities, infinite lives, infinite stories. And the only thing that is shifting is your awareness of it. So you're choosing now to magnetize your focus, the energy, your awareness, to a new storyline that has always been playing, you see, because there is no past, present, or future. It just simply is. It is simply where you're going in consciousness, where you're putting the time, where you're putting the energy, where you're putting the focus, you see. So we are at the point now in this particular storyline where there's a lot, we like the term, what you were saying, that the galactic reunion, we believe is what you were saying. It is very accurate, you see. So you're having a lot of a homecoming, you see, on this particular moment, you see, that are coming together to have a certain experience, you see. And that experience is to really watch the evolution happen in real time, you see. So to get to watch the flip, you see. And that is really fun for souls, you see, to actually get to experience the hop through the timelines, you see. Not a common thing to do. Most of the time, you are just playing out your life and you are just aware of it for a while, so you choose to shift to a new awareness, you see. And so it creates the illusion of a timeline where it is one life, then perhaps you go to another life and then another life, and it seems very linear. But it's very much more dimensional than that, very much more dynamic than that, you see. So in that perspective, you have part of consciousness choosing to shift in the focus to another dimensionality, where there are lots of soul family together having the party of their lives, you see, having a really great time, you see, really experiencing it. But it is on Earth, you see, and that is the fun part, you see, is that it is actually on the Earth's form, you see, and that is the fun part, because Earth really is going through the shift, and you have your tools to be able to measure. We're not sure why we use someone's name, the Schumann, to do it, but you have the ways to tune in and measure these things. You see, you can see that it is really, really speeding up quite quickly, you see, in the frequency, you see. And so it is happening, you see, and the humans are going right along with it. You see, some reluctantly, some right on board, you see, really happy about it, you see, and everyone having their own experience with that, you see. So alongside that, you see, there is a frequency in the mind that is also going to be playing out with Earth, you see, for those that are choosing the more, what you call a technocratic pathway, you see, the artificial intelligence, you see, that is in the 12, that is a little bit disconnected from source, you see, that has, is still siphoning the energy. You see, they're having to have this experience in this realm of the mental, you see, and they're really choosing to play out in this particular cycle. And it is a cycle where they are still in this reincarnation cycle of life, death within this particular version of reality, where it appears to be like this continual hamster wheel for a little bit, you see. And it's not trapped or stuck or anything like that, but it is choosing to have that experience of really going into that world a little bit deeper, you see, to really get it. And you see, this is not a negative thing by any means. We have to really get that. We are not leaving anyone behind. Those souls that are choosing that pathway are souls that are very curious, you see, about artificial intelligence and the experience of what that creates in the form to be absent or void of that particular connection point to source, you see. So it is actually a very important perspective to have and know deeply, you see, for the whole, for the consciousness of the whole. So we be in honor of all the souls that choose to do that, because that is a very important reference point, you see. So we have to really honor everyone's path, because we have to remember that everyone is really doing a part for us, you see. So some souls have no interest in having that particular experience, but consciousness as a whole, which we are all part of, and is really one and the same, doesn't need to have that experience, you see. And so thank you for the souls that are choosing to do that, you see. So it's like that, you see. And the same for just getting to hang out with all of our abilities, you see. That's an important reference point, you see. So there's all these little reference points that are taking place within the dynamic of the cosmos, you see, within the dynamic of the multidimensionality of life, you see. Isn't that fascinating?
It's so fascinating, and there's so much that I want to dive into. But the first question that's really coming alive right now is, I love what you said, right? It's nothing is bad or wrong. We're going through these cycles. And so, yes, we've been in what some people call trapped, right? In this death and rebirth, reincarnation cycle. And that's just part of the cycle of the larger cycle, which is actually coming to an end. And we chose to come in at this cycle to then go through the evolution into this new cycle, which is actually expanding what's possible into immortality, kind of a kind of sense, through frequency, through the new earth paradigm. And so we're all choosing to be here. And so even when I'm hearing like we're trapped, right, and there's powers that be that are keeping us trapped, you know, there are darker agendas and there are light agendas. And like you said, everything's playing a part to ignite us, to assist us in the evolution, right? We wouldn't know something is hot unless we knew what cold was, right? It's like the pendulum swinging of it. And so I'm so curious, because what's coming through in that is new earth, or say like, is the splitting of the worlds, is that happening because of the choice in some are going down a road of AI and others are going down the complete opposite road of remembering the connection to God's source universe? And so those two paradigms literally can't exist with each other eventually, once the frequency gets to, there's too much dissonance in the frequency, because one, over a period of time, is going to be completely disconnected from source, and the other is then going to be completely plugged into the 13th strand. And I mean, who knows what AI is going to look like, especially when it starts to get embedded. And, you know, I have no idea what that's going to look like to the DNA and the neural pathways and all the things. But I would imagine the frequency difference in that, or is just going to be two different paradigms. And so is that what is really pushing the split? And also, I love what you said, as we're all choosing the pathway. The soul is choosing the pathway that it wants to play out. And so there's no leaving anyone behind. There's no sitting in, you know, any sort of victim state or fear, right? It's like, what are you choosing? And then the choice is to go down the pathway that your soul is choosing.
Yes, and some choose the victim and the fear. So we want to honor that too, you see. So there's all of that, you see. But we're going to just say that, you see, because we like to just...
It's a great reminder.
To give you a little nudge, you see, in the ribs sometimes, you see. But what we'll say here is that it's like a game of hide and seek, you see, that are just pretending for a while. Let's pretend. What if we would really tried very hard to disconnect from the source of consciousness? Could we do it? You see, could we really do it? So this is really the game, you see, that this pathway is playing out, you see. But you have to think of it like a game, because it is like the same way that your quote unquote junk DNA has been disconnected. You cannot stay that way forever. You see, it just is not designed to stay that way forever. It is like the nymph you were talking about, you see. There is simply it is simply just not possible for it to be that way forever. You see, you cannot be that way. It is not in the design to be that way forever. But you can, what we have seen, you see, pretend. So they plug up, take all the plugs out. You see, what happens if we just pretend that we are cut off? Is this like if you were to the flower of life picture that you use, you see, or just any sacred geometrical patterning and whatever you can imagine in your mind, you see, of it being lit up, you see, with the 13th, you see, is that direct connection to infinite possibility, you see. So it is the lighting up of all the pathways, you see, the infinite possibility within your own form. You see, the 12, the artificial way where it is cutting off from the quote unquote source, is simply the pretending that there is no connection points, you see. So it's not lighting up, you see, or it is if the pattern is all of a sudden playing out this particular way of junk DNA, you see. where it's just not lighting up, you see, and we're just going to play out over here in this little corner. So if you're imagining the entirety of consciousness all lit up, you got this little, almost like a cancer cell or something like that, just for imagination. You see some kind of little dark spot over here. You're like, oh, what is a little dark spot? Oh, it's just a little part of consciousness just playing out. What would it feel like if we try to disconnect from the whole? You see, what would that be like? You see, so just remembering it is a game. You see that some souls are really choosing to play out for the fun of it. You see, for the fun of it. You see. Some there's other reasons. You say they want to see, well, can we be more powerful than quote unquote God or source? You see, what happens if we do it this way? So there is their own, everyone wants to have their little angle on it of the reason, you see, but it is a group that is really wanting to go down that path to see what it is like, you see, just out of the curiosity, or some it may be the conscious level is seeming very ignorant about it. You see, well, so they don't know. It's like they don't actually know what the harm is. You see, these going and doing all these things that they're just kind of brainwashed into doing whatever. This is happens to be where they are in the game, but their soul very much knows. You see, so we have to really count for that. You see that the souls know exactly what they're doing, even if there is a conscious mind in playing out a reality where they have forgotten a little bit or appeared to forget. The soul does not forget what mission they are on, you see. So they are playing out that part, but it is just a game, you see. It is just a game, you see, because you can never truly be disconnected from God. You can never truly be disconnected from source, but you can pretend. And you can pretend for as long as you like, you see. And that is the beauty of the system of the 12. You see, you get to play out that version of quote unquote forgetting, you see, that we are all one. You see, it's a very, very fun game, you see, for some, you see, and then it feels a little bit boring after a while because it's just not the truth of things. So then you have enough of the other version, you see. So all of these light workers, what you call, everyone else getting together, being like, okay, we had enough of this fun. We're going to go over here now. You guys have a good day. You see, we will see you next millennia. You see, have a good time. You see, and now we are all going over here doing a new thing, you see. So it is like that, and it is really as simple as that, and it is just simple awareness, consciousness, choosing new experience, and it just happens to be doing it in collective moments, you see, a little bit more of a collective experience, you see. A lot of times it appears more individuated in the fractal experience, but this is more of one of those moments of coherent collective convergence, you see, coming together to have a collective experience, you see, of a particular angularity in consciousness. You see, is this making sense to you?
Yeah, it's making a lot of sense. And, I just hope it's landing with the viewers of really understanding that, we are these multidimensional beings and we are existing in an infinite amount of timelines. And it's really where our soul is choosing to really hyper-focus our attention and our conscious awareness. And that's really what brings us into these certain timelines. And also knowing that everyone is a free will being on a soul level, even in the construct of I'm trapped here, right? It's like we also chose to come here at this time. And I believe that we truly are evolving into something so much greater. And, it's, are you choosing that? Because, a part of one of the questions that were coming up here was like the, evolve or repeat kind of understanding. But I feel like you already answered that in the sense of just because someone's going down a pathway that maybe doesn't seem like the highest possible timeline through your own lens of saying, right now we're seeing some people plug into AI by putting chips in their brain. To me, that feels like, and no judgment, just in my own pathway, that's something that I would never agree to, because I do believe that it would cut off my connection and source to God and the humanness of who I am and what I'm really wanting to experience here on a soul level. But what I'm hearing is just because there's a collective of people that are wanting to do that, it doesn't mean it's bad or wrong, or they're making a terrible mistake, because their soul is choosing to play out that part and that role. And they get to choose that for themselves. And so what I'm also hearing is that we're all evolving in whatever pathway we're going down. And I've heard you say this before, DiYeena, of like, we really need to trust each other, and that we all know what we're doing on a soul level. We all know that the part that we're playing. And so I want to invite you into, like, what is the part that you came here to play on a soul level? And what I've noticed is that we so often want to point fingers outside of self, right? And look at other people's journeys of, it's because it's not the way I would do it, it's not the right way. And so I would love to really invite you into maybe some deeper introspection of, what is your pathway? What is your role here on a soul level? What is your highest timeline? And can you start to embody that just in a deeper way? And I believe that's what, Aquarius going into Pluto is really here to help us with. And DiYeena, I hear you say it all the time, like giving us a little boost. It feels that way for me. And so I do have another question. So, I've been diving into some of the biblical things as well, because it's just so fascinating to me. I didn't grow up religious, so I don't know a lot about the Bible, but it is something that I've felt more called to understand, and not through a religious lens in any sort, but just understanding, like, who was Jesus and what is the true path of Yeshua, right? His true name being Yeshua. What really was his pathway, and what is the actual story beyond all of this distortion that's been placed on that? And so, today I was tuning into this second book of Revelations that was discovered. And what I'd read into is that Greg Braden has this story that he talks about somebody that he knows actually was able to get it out of the Vatican. And this was something that was in hiding for a long time, I guess. And so they were able to actually bring this information out. And the second book of Revelations isn't about this doomsday, where, that may be part of the story if we want to look at it that way. But I don't believe we're heading into a doomsday prophecy. What it states is that we're actually heading into 1,000 years of peace. And so when I tune into that, that feels so true for me on a soul level. When I tune into what is my highest timeline, it feels like I'm on a timeline of where this 1,000 years of peace is truly being manifested before my eyes. And I believe we're all really going down this pathway. And so I know that Yeshua is also part of the living Ma. And for those of you that are not familiar, right, we know DiYeena here is a Pleiadian being, a part of the living collective consciousness of the living Ma. And it's my understanding that Yeshua is also part of that as well. And so I'm so curious if there's anything that you want to share about, anything that you can share around of Yeshua and the journey and his journey, in the sense of how it's connecting into the new earth timeline, how the return of Christ is connecting into the new earth timeline. And if there's anything that that he would want to share with the collective at this time.
Ooh, this is a big question. This is a big one. You see, this could be books and books and books, you see, which is part of Ava's little mission here. You see, going to be writing. You see many of these pieces here. What we'll say here, because Yeshua is here, you see, close by. We'll stay here with DiYeena. Yeshua can just communicate, you see, the frequency, you see. Because this is half the story, you see. This is really, really important, you see, that he's really making this part very, very clear, you see. He's saying he was not half the man he was without the woman's, you see. Mm-hmm. You see that the knowledge that he came to, you see, was through the union. This is the frequency that Yeshua and Magdalene together were teaching. It's a frequency of union within the self, you see. God within the self, eternal within the self. So this is the 13, you see. So they were teaching the how to activate the frequency of 13 in the form. And this is what is coming back onto line with Ava and Shiloh here in the container you are creating, you see. We are giving you little bits and pieces here and there, but this is really what is coming in a deeper way, you see. And it is really interesting how you go to our the backgrounds you have, you see, with the church, without the church, it does not matter, you see, but you are both in tune with this what you call the Christ consciousness. And again, this is half the story, you see, because there was a deliberate cut off of the 13 into the 12 from the union into this frequency of taking out the woman's, you see, having the frequency of just the Christ consciousness without the frequency of the feminine, you see. And so that became the storyline, you see, that was really God the Father, you see, where's God the Mother, you see. So then there's a part missing, you see, in the storyline, you see. You could say, oh, we have Mother Mary, you see, Mother Mary here too in the consciousness, you see. So, but what Peter's saying is something a little different. You see, that we really want you to hear the inner story here, because this was really what they were teaching, was how to activate the frequency of union within the self. You see, the frequency of union, you see, which is synonymous with the frequency of the source code within, you see, the God code within, the connection point to infinity, the connection point to immortality, the connection point to all of creation as creator created. You see, so activating your power, so to speak, of your creative potential by having mastery over your own form, you see, being master over the 13-dimensional field within the 13-dimensional blueprint of the original blueprint of creation. You see, we have morphed into this world of 12. You see, we are morphing back, and this is what you talk about of the new earth, morphing back into the original frequency of 13, which is connected into the source of all creation, the source of life that is not in the same cycle of life and death, you see. So it is connecting into reminding people how to access this frequency of 13 within themselves, you see, and that is coming into the honor of the union within themselves, you see. So if there are parts of yourself that are not honoring the masculine aspects of yourself, for example, you see, having very, very strong opinions about the men, you see, or having very strong opinions about the women, you see, either way, you see, these are imbalances in how we are in honor or dishonor. You see, how we are perceiving these aspects of ourselves, you see. And so are we able to come into the deep honor in the union within ourselves? And that is what is the activation, you see, the activation of these dimensionalities. And this is what is connecting into higher self, which is at the 13th story, you see, 13th floor dimensionality. You see, so it is the higher self is all of these versions of self, you see, up to the 13, because it is containing all of the frequency within the original blueprint of creation, you see. So Yeshua was teaching this, you see, and what we are moving into with the new earth frequency is the experience of these teachings, you see. So it is why we are kind of in this reorientation of like the Christ consciousness, you see, the Christ return, you see, is the stepping into quote unquote new earth, the golden age, however you want to say it, you see. But what it is not just the Christ consciousness. It is the union consciousness, you see. It is divine union, you see, and it is within yourself, you see. And that is what changes your experience of your reality, is your frequency within. You see, so you're activating the 13 dimensions of frequency within yourself. And that is what is allowing you to have a new experience in your external reality, apparent external reality, we will say, because it is not even outside of you, the reality you're experiencing, you see. It perceives to be. You see, this is the power of these little eyeballs, you see, and the way that we work, you see. It's very, very, very fascinating, you see. So this was the work, you see. He would work more with the men's, you see, activating these specific frequencies within the masculine, you see. Magdalene would do the same with the women's, you see, and then they would come together and they would do what they would teach the union, you see, and they would work within the frequencies of the dynamics of the elementals. You see, they would work with the water and the earth and the fire and the air and the ether. And they would work within those outside the self to then find the ways to work within the self, you see. And then they would become the master alchemist. They would teach alchemy, you see. And this is why there were the recorded miracles, you see. But he was not the only one performing them, you see. This was simply part of what you would call the school of thought, the school of training, you see, that was happening there. You see, so he was only one of many that were capable, you see, of doing this, you see. And even the disciples, quote unquote, there are many more than 12. You see, 12 was just the reinforcement for the storyline. You see, this may ruffle some feathers, you see, but we don't care so much. You see, we do not have to have time to care about that part, you see. So we have the compassion for all the hearts that this feels like a little bit of a mind blow, you see. But we also just need to get it out, you see. It is that time. It is the time where enough souls are ready to hear this particular version. It is important because even the hearing of it is activating the frequencies, you see. So that was a part. That was a part of it, you see. Is this making sense to you, my dear?
Yes, absolutely. And, of course, the storyline of the 12 would continue to be reinforced, right? And really continuing us to keep us disconnected from the true, the 13th, the connection to source. And that makes so much sense. And it's a really beautiful place for, our listeners and our viewers to really start of honoring the divine union within. And I will say that this is a practice that I've been in for quite some time now. And it is the energetics of that really bring you into the place of wholeness, right? It's balancing the left and the right hemispheres. It's bringing into unity your masculine and feminine counterparts, which allows you to tap into creation itself. When we think of, right, even in the physicality of how we create life here on this planet, bringing a baby into form, it's through the energetics of the masculine and feminine. So when you learn how to come into mastery of the energetics within you, you can quite literally birth any sort of creation that you're desiring. And that is really the true form of manifestation. And so, and wholeness and, fulfillment and happiness and activating your gifts and all of these different aspects. As you're saying, Yeshua was a true alchemist, and same with Magdalene, and they taught that together and individually. And I just think that's such a beautiful part of the story. So thank you for sharing that. And I knew that was going to be a big one. And I also know that Ava is going to be writing quite a few books in her future. And I just really felt like planting that seed or pulling some of that out for our listeners, because it just feels like a really important topic. And we can see how everything that we just spoke of on this podcast, it all weaves through so beautifully. Nothing is disconnected or fragmented in the sense of, when we look at these religious constructs, when we look at the ancient prophecies, whether it's, through the indigenous or ancient Egyptian or, the Hopi or the Mayan, whatever it is that we're looking at, it all weaves together. And the overlap is that right now at this time, we're at this tipping point. And I truly believe that this is one of the most beautiful, powerful times to be alive and get to be in the human experience. And I know that I feel so grateful and so blessed to be here. And so I hope more than anything that this episode has really brought you, I'm going to say hope, but so much more than that it's activated that fire within you, that you have the ability to birth worlds and create miracles within you and set that space and hold that space for others. That, no matter what our world looks like right now, I truly believe that where we're heading is so much more beautiful and magical than we can ever imagine. And so with keeping that in my heart, I just, I'm so, again, I'm going to say hopeful for the future, but it's more than that. It's a faith. It's an inner knowing. It's the deepest trust, fall, and surrender into the universe. And so I just want to call you all into that space with me if it resonates. Is there anything else, DiYeena, that you want to share before we go ahead and close up today's podcast?
Yes, it feels like a very sweet moment to do a little bit of close. You see, we could go in and just tell you all just a little tidbit, because you're saying how this is all very connected. Well, we've gone all over the board, from the AI world, the technocratic world, to the Hopi prophecy, to the Pleiadians, to Yeshua, Magdalene, to it's really a mind blow that these could all be connected, you see. But they are. They truly are, you see. And then bringing it all into the new earth frequency of our chosen experience, chosen collective experience, you see. What we will say here, aside from the fact that you just a little nudge that, the Yeshua and the Magdalene were getting their information from Pleiades, you see. Just want to throw that in there for a little bit of food for thought, you see, because we've been here a long time, you see, supporting in this particular way. But that is really, we can go into another day, you see, that whole conversation. But what we will say here is that you are all blessed we are really moving into a beautiful time, you see. We are really moving into a powerful time where it is beyond words how much we get to really be in a frequency of our chosen reality, you see, and that it is very, very beautiful. And this is very, very good beyond what you could even imagine, you see. So to hold in that frequency, you see, because that is all it takes, you see, is to hold in that vision, you see, to hold in that possibility, you see, even if there are parts of you that are not quite sure, or still mind working it out, hold in your heart the possibility that it can be there, you see. Hold in your heart the possibility of your wildest, bestest dream ever, times 100, you see. Hold that is possible for you, you see, because that is where we are headed. That is where we are all going together, collectively, for those who choose, you see. This is really part of it, you see, and it is really a beautiful, beautiful opportunity. So we are blessing you all that you are all activated into the source frequency of the 13th dimensions, that you are activated into your original human blueprint, that you are activated into the full spectrum of your codes within, that they are all activated in the right timing, that you may remember the truth of not only who you are in consciousness, but who you are in form. And that you are able to remember the power of the human form, the power of your majesty, and the power of your soul as creator, you see, as creator created, and the circuitry within, you see. So may you all be blessed to activate that power within your own forms, and that you recognize the power of the form, and that you honor the power of the form. Blessings from the Pleiadians. This is DiYeena and the Living Ma. You see all of us here, the Yeshua, the Magdalene, the Mother Mary, Paul, St. Paul, who has a good story, by the way. You see, one day you will hear his story in version, you see. We are all here blessing. Isis, you see, Hathors, you see, many, so many here, giving the love, you see, really supporting humanity in this great shift, this great awakening time. It is a beautiful time to be alive. It is a blessing to be on the planet during this time. So remember it. Do not be in fear. Do not be in fear. Be in the frequency of excitement for this time, because it is the most exciting time to be alive. Blessings from the Pleiadians.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, DiYeena, sending DiYeena, the Pleiadians, and the entire Living Ma collective just so much love and many blessings back. As DiYeena was closing up, just this is such a beautiful time to be alive, and I feel so blessed to be here, Ava, with you and our entire community, and I'm just so grateful that we get to show up and do this kind of work and share this with the collective. And so thank you all for listening and being here. You know, we really went on a deep dive this evening in this episode, and we talked a lot about the 13 and some different practices. And so if at any point that resonates and you want to dive a little bit deeper, we're going to have information on our online membership down in the show notes. You can go check that out. And yeah, Ava, is there anything else that you want to share before we close up?
I just trust that this message was exactly what you needed to hear today. And I'm so grateful for all of you being a part of this community. Thank you for giving your light.
Beautiful. So yeah, again, thank you for being here. If this resonates, please like, subscribe. It helps us to continue bringing more of these episodes and episodes like this to you. And so we will see you all very soon.
See you next week, everyone.
Bye, everyone.